Hi everyone, it's Some Type of Artist, and I'm back here today with my friend Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello.
And today,
Hi.
hi. Today we're going to be looking and revisiting Samurai 7. This, if you're just coming into this video from like a review search or something like that, I'm going back and looking at a bunch of old anime that I used to grow up with. I used to be a really big anime fan when I was in high school and parts of college, and then I really lost interest very quickly at one point in time, and really just kind of grew to hate anime. And then a bunch of time went by. I'm kind of getting back into it, kind of trying to figure out again what I like and dislike about anime. So thought it would be fun to make a video discussion series along the way of a bunch of these old shows that I grew up with. And Chris had also looked at a lot of these shows with me along the way, so it's a bit like a retrospective. Samurai 7, though, you know, this was. I don't have too many memories with Samurai 7. Um, I remember late in high school, and that was around 2006. One of my friends had started buying the DVDs, and I watched a couple at her house, and I liked it and always wanted to check it out, but for whatever reason, I just never really went out of my way to try to look it up. And it was around 2010 that I was losing all my interest in anime. But before I completely checked out, I think you actually got me the box set along with Cowboy Bebop in one of those affordable collections, and
Yeah.
that's when I watched it. I was like introduced to it like 4 years before I had actually watched it, and I remember liking it. I liked it enough to go and check out the movie Seven Samurai that it was based off of. But like I said, this was at the very end of my interest in anime, so it just kind of was like not something I really have a lot of memories with. I really didn't remember too much about the show at all going into this. But I do remember seeing this advertised a lot, in between those 4 years, um, like on other Funimation DVDs and stuff like that. I think my Full Metal Alchemist DVDs had this advertised a lot, and I remember seeing these in the stores a lot too. Like, my box set doesn't have it, but all of the DVDs had this very good looking artwork on each of them, of each of the Seven Samurai. And they're on my discs, but it's unfortunately not on my box itself. But it did always like kind of stand out to me as like one of those shows where it's like, oh, I really should watch this, and I spent so long that by the time I did, it was kind of like my interest had already faded.
Yeah. It was always introduced as kind of like a prestige anime, if that makes sense, because, it is based on Akira Kurosawa's legendary film, Seven Samurai.
Hmm.
Um, I do remember, like, I first saw this show when it was on IFC, which is like the independent film channel, and it was advertised as, based on the legendary Seven Samurai. I remember people telling me each episode of the show cost like $1 million or some crazy amount of money.
I think it said
And
$300,000 on Wikipedia, which I don't know if that's a lot or not, but
that's a lot for animation, I think.
I
Plus, adjusted for inflation,
yeah,
because I think this was made in
4
2003 or 4. Okay.
2004. We got it like a
Okay.
year or two later in America,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was that was like one of the first things I noticed about the show, because like it is a good looking show. I guess especially considering for an early 2000s show, and I don't want to be a snob about it, but like I feel like if you're checking it out today, it's probably nothing you haven't seen in another show already in terms of like
Yeah.
animation quality. Because there are some scenes that look really, really good, and then there are some scenes that kind of look average. There's a couple of scenes that look downright, I think, terrible. Um, Gonzo makes this, and from what I read online, this is kind of a trend with Gonzo where they blow a lot of their animation budgets in specific scenes and have to cut back elsewhere. But you know, either way, I do think it's a good looking show. But I don't know. Like in my head, I kept on having that like what you had said about each episode costing so much to make, and in my head as I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be this hand drawn animation snob, but
Oh man.
I kind of think Escaflowne looked better because that was the last show we had looked at. Um,
I would say visually, Escaflowne maybe looked a little sharper, but I would say like animation wise, when this is in motion, it is a lot more than Escaflowne. Besides for the movie,
oh yeah,
um,
yeah,
there's definitely a lot more fight choreography going on in this.
yeah. It is an action show.
Yeah, way more movement in the backgrounds too. Maybe towards the beginning, but it does have one thing that I think definitely dates the show.
What's
Is
that?
it's one of those animes that kind of tried to do, 2D animation combined with 3D animation,
Yeah.
and the 3D animation looked great at the time. And granted, it doesn't look bad, but when you see it, you're like, hey, I remember PS2. Man, that was a good era.
Ooh, ouch. See, I you're referring to the robots, right?
Yes.
Because I thought they looked good, but like I
They
said,
they do
if
look good, but they
they
are
don't
dated,
look anything like amazing today, you know. I've like you've probably seen other shows do this or better, but you know that's not the point. I'm not really here to like harp on the animation quality of Samurai 7.
I'm not
Let's
harping on it. I'm just
yeah.
making the
Yeah.
comparison of like that's when it was made. I mean, this is a
Mhm.
guy who loves Beast Wars, and when you see that show, it's like, oh my god. But
Yeah.
it could be jarring if you're not expecting it and you're going into this and you're like, this animation looks great. Whoa, what's that?
Yeah, I like the robot. Well, I guess let's get into the story before we can talk more about the animation as it goes along. So like
Yeah.
we mentioned, this is based on Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai movie, which was about a village of farmers that was getting raided and attacked by bandits. They went out to search for samurai to help protect them. They recruit seven samurai. The samurai help them fight off the invaders and teach them how to defend themselves. And I don't want to say that's it, but that's kind of it. It's really
It's
good. But Samurai
it's an
7,
iconic story now.
yeah, I think from what I was reading, that was the strongest part of the legacy of that movie was just that general, you know, gathering a group of people to fight for a common cause kind of trope you see sometimes. And Samurai 7 recreates this pretty well and adds its own set of subplots in that extend it a little further, which I also think work out very well. But in the beginning, there's the poor farming village. They grow rice there. That's all they really have to offer the samurai. So the one of the priestesses in the village, her name's Kirara, and her little sister. What is her little sister's name? Kamachi.
Kamachi.
I'm gonna apologize in
Yeah.
advance. I'm usually not this bad with it, but I was struggled a lot to remember names in the show. Like half the characters all begin with the letter K, and they all have like 3 or 4 syllables in their name, and it just in my head it
Yeah.
was kind of hard to keep track. So I'm just gonna apologize ahead of time if I screw up any kind of remembering names. So Kirara and Komachi, and there's this other guy named Rikichi, who doesn't really have anything to do with anything until the second half of the show. The three of them go into a city to look for samurai, and one by one they encounter different samurai. To Most of them hate them. Most samurai look down on the farmers and the peasants. There's a lot of scenes where they're shown trying to offer rice and plead with them, and a lot of the samurai are really rude about it. They'll like eat all the rice first before telling them no, and just generally take
Yeah.
advantage of these farmers. Um, Eventually, they meet this machine samurai, and I guess that's one thing I should mention right now. This is like a steampunk retelling of Samurai 7. The bandits are these giant mechs that used to be samurai and somehow turned themselves into these giant Gundam sized machines that come and raid these villages. And the people that aren't turned
Yeah.
into giant machines, they kind of ride around in these smaller mechs. Um, and One of these machine samurai is pretty tall for a person, but he's more along the size of a person. He's not like a towering mech, but there's this machine samurai in the city they met. Um, oh, jeez, I'm already screwing up the name. Well,
Pikachu.
Kikisho, yeah, thank you. He wants to go and save this child that's been taken prisoner by a thief, and he's very loud and he's very rambunctious, and he gets interrupted by another samurai named Kanbei, who creates kind of a ruse to get the child out and back into safety. And Kirara has this dowsing crystal, and it tells her that Kanbei is like the one. So she wants Kanbei to join their group, and Kanbei is like, I don't know. We'll think about it. He's not really too into it at first. He's like he
Yeah.
used to fight in the war that had happened before the show started, and I guess he's been always been on the losing side of the battles. He's a really good samurai. He's just never been on a side that's won, and I don't know. I guess he's just kind of tired of it. But he does come around and he helps them look for other samurai. The machine samurai Kikucho, he hangs around them a bunch and helps them search out, but Kanbei doesn't really want him to be a part of their little group because Kikucho is very inexperienced. He is very powerful, but he's very inexperienced, and he's looking for more experienced people.
He's,
There is another inexperienced samurai named Katshiro that wants to become Kanbei's disciple, and Kanbei's like, no, but lets him follow around anyway. Um, and then
yeah. To just go off of
yeah.
what you were saying at the beginning, real quick. They do allude to this like war at the beginning of the show,
Mm-hmm.
and you do see the war happening. And
Oh,
honestly, they
right.
never tell you exactly what the war was about. I guess it's just kind of making the like, oh, it's Japan, so feudal lords fighting each other, blah blah blah. One emperor wins, and
Yeah, I think it's for
the
like
this
land and stuff like that.
yeah. But the state of the world is in a weird situation too because the samurai exist, but at the same time, they're sort of not really doing anything. In fact, a lot of them are kind of just Ronin
Mm-hmm.
because there's this like merchant class that really is controlling everything for the emperor. It's a whole weird situation with this,
It's it's like the
futuristic stuff combined with the old world stuff.
yeah, it's like when a soldier comes home for battle and has no place in society anymore because his whole life was just fighting. So these samurai no
Yeah,
longer have a place in a society that's, more or less. I wouldn't say it's a peaceful society because of, all the raids by the bandits and everything, but the entire world is not at war anymore, so the samurai don't have any masters to really respond to for the most part. So some of them turned into the bandits. Some of them are like the rude little shit stains that were taking advantage of the farmers in the city, and some of them are like Kanbei that are still carry a sense of honor and will try to do what they believe is the right thing to serve the people. Um, and then others like one of our next samurai, Kyozo, he is a bodyguard to the magistrate of the city. So
Yeah.
the samurai will try to find a way in their world with the skills they have. Um, Kyozo goes after Kanbei at one point. I forget exactly why off the top of my head, but they eventually cross paths and they are falling in love with each other because of how great their battle is. So Kanbei
Well, you
says,
you
"What's that?"
yeah, go on.
Oh, it's
I
Kanbei
was gonna
just.
say when you said like he's going over after Kanbei for no reason.
Oh no, I don't. I
I
don't
think
remember
they
what the reason is. That's all.
yeah they have the encounter with like Ukyo because the magistrate's son Ukyo is sort of infatuated with Kirara because he's like,
Oh,
oh,
that's right.
she's really pretty, and I want her to be part of my like harem.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
he tries to kidnap her by hiring. Well, he has like his goons, but Kyozin is one of his father's bodyguards, and he's involved in it. But then that's kind of how Kanbei and Kyozin end up fighting each other, and
Yeah,
you know the awesomeness of Kanbei and Kyozin fighting each other, and Kanbei being like, "I want him," like,
I want him physically.
yeah,
There's kind of like a homoerotic scene with the two of them while they're fighting, and it never goes anywhere. But it was always just kind of stood out to me. Um, but he's Kyozo eventually is going to become one of the samurai, but not just yet. He's still working for the magistrate at the moment. And Kanbei
yeah,
tells him, "We'll finish our fight later, but I have a promise I need to keep and save these farmers." They also meet a entertainer named Gorobe. He used to be a samurai and kind of uses his skills for like street performing. So they recruit him. They find a samurai that offered to cut a bunch of wood for a restaurant in exchange for food. His name's Heihachi. He has never really killed anybody in a war before, but he has worked on a lot of the machines and stuff that were used in the war, so they get him too.
he was
And
involved in the war. He said,
yeah, he was like a mechanic in the war. He said he
yeah,
never really killed anybody in the war before, but he seems very willing to fix that if he needs to. Um, he kind of looks like Naruto a little bit. He's got like the fox eyes and the whiskers, and he wears goggles,
yeah,
and his whole outfit is well, his not his whole outfit, but his hair is orange, and that reminds me of Naruto's jacket. um,
yeah.
but I was calling him Naruto for a bit before I learned his name. So anyway, the magistrate and his son Ukyo, they have their own subplot going along. Um, Ukyo is adopted by the magistrate, and the magistrate is trying to teach him like the ways of the merchant and stuff like that. And one day, an envoy from the emperor comes by his house, and he's discovered dead. And they deduce it's a samurai that killed him. So he declares that all the samurai in the city are going to be arrested. So our group of samurai and the villagers try to flee Ukyo and his I guess mercenaries and stuff like that. There's a bunch of
His goons,
his goons. He's got a bunch of goons
yeah,
that have like modified themselves so they're like part machine. Like there's one guy that
yeah,
like flicks his hand up and like some kind of rifle comes out of his arm and he shoots a bunch of bullets out of it, and there's another one where his arms extend and stuff like that. So the samurai have to fight them off for a while, and they flee to an area that they're safe at because the magistrate doesn't have any control over it. And that's where they find their next samurai. His name's Shiroji, I think. Um, and I never really understood this because it's like he used to fight alongside Kanbei in the war, and Kanbei knew all about him. and I don't understand why they didn't go to him first if they knew he would help.
Well, um, Sorochi, he's kind of involved working at this I don't know exactly what it is. It's sort
It's a
of like
tea
a
house.
inn, I guess,
Yeah, it's like a tea
but
house
it
in.
almost seems like it might be a brothel. It's kind of ambiguous, but
I think it's just an inn.
yeah.
He has this
So
like woman he's involved with that's there, and I guess they have their own kind of kimono girl performers, but it's not. I don't think it's like a brothel or anything like that.
yeah, I wasn't sure, but because it's in a weird part of the city,
Well, it's
because
not even. It's not even
they
in the
make a big
city.
deal about going to the lower part of the city, so that's
Yeah,
why I kind of
it's outside of their.
assumed.
It's outside of the magistrate's district, so like they
Yeah,
can't do anything about the samurai that's there. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, it was just kind of I don't know. It kind of like struck me weird because it's like a Kanbei is just like, oh, we have to find samurai. You guys all split up and look for samurai around the city, and like the whole time he knows where one is, and it's like, well, geez, dude, come on. it,
maybe he just didn't want to get him involved because he knew he might have found happiness working for this lady's inn.
yeah,
They refer to him as Momotaro sometimes,
yeah,
and
that's
I think
something
that's
that
based off of Japanese mythology that I'm not very familiar with, but certain characters will refer to him as Momotaro a lot.
and that really
And
bothered me because I always had a hard time just pronouncing his name because when I look at how it's spelt in the credits, it feels like they're eliminating a syllable entirely. And that's all on me just for being ignorant and not knowing how to pronounce foreign names, I guess. But um, it was kind of irritating that a lot of characters kept on calling him Momotaro because of one joke that was made when they met him. Because I guess the woman he's
yeah,
with found him injured, and that's how they met. And I guess whatever legend this Momotaro character is from, that was like a similar situation. But I don't know. It was a joke that like went on for like way too long. I really feel like they should have started calling him his name past that episode he was introduced. But whatever. That was far
yeah.
from the worst thing about that episode for me because, and I know you disagree with me on this, but the animation quality at the beginning of this episode for when Shiroji's introduced dips super significantly. It's like I think it's supposed to be a completely different style by like a guest animator or something like that, but it doesn't really feel
I
like a
think
change
it's
in.
trying to be artsy fartsy.
It doesn't really feel like a style change. It just feels like it's drawn very, very sloppily. Like they half-assed it, and
I,
it was so distracting for me that I had to pause and go look up what the hell is wrong with this episode. And a lot of people
yeah,
hated it
I
too. Well, the most I can say is someone had mentioned that this was supposed to just a different style for this scene by like a guest animator, but I have no idea why they chose like this specific instance when introducing one of the main characters to kind of I don't know. It bothered me a lot. One thing I really
I
remember disliking about anime after a while was when when anime is playing out and then for like a joke or something, characters become like super chibi and the background changes to like a bright color and there's like shapes and stuff going along and everybody's talking in like really high pitched voices and really fast to make a joke or something like that. That was one of the things about anime that I really grew to hate. And I feel like over time I kept on
yeah.
thinking one of the things I really dislike about I guess not even the anime, just an animation in general, is when it can't keep a consistent animation style, because that really just brings me
Hmm.
out of the moment. And this is one of those cases where it's like I feel like it wasn't even doing it to be funny. It would I don't know why they did it at all, but it really brought me out of the moment.
Yeah, to just go on that. I think the reason for that animation is I think it is supposed to be artsy fartsy. I could be wrong, but because I can't remember his name, but that character, they call him Momotaro. That art kind of looks like traditional Japanese like art, and I
Yeah,
think that might be something they were going for at that scene
yeah,
because it's not one new thing I've seen in anime, but this was made way before is certain animes like to do this thing where they have animation but it's painted. um I almost think that kind of is maybe what they were trying to do with this scene, and it was before they figured out how to actually do that. But I think
hmm
it's just a artsy fartsy thing they tried, and a
yeah,
lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was fine, to be honest, and maybe I've just
hmm
watched enough of this stuff that like when something happens uh in a show, I just sort of like that's interesting. I wonder why they did that.
yeah. I'll interrupt and just ask if anybody knows, the scene we're talking about, why it was done, can offer any insight about it. Please let me know, because this isn't the first show I've seen to really kind of do this, and I wanna. I'm not. I'm not really finding any really consistent, clear, good answer to it, other than
Yeah,
it's lack of budget, which to me just kind of doesn't feel like an excuse, really.
yeah,
Like do a recap episode or something instead of just cutting it in
or we
half.
have one.
And it's well, they do have one, and well,
Yeah,
um, and it's not even like it takes place in the whole episode either. It's like half the episode, and that's even more bizarre to me because it's like it will in the same episode. Imagine if you were watching it like Chris did on IFC, and this was your first introduction to Samurai 7, and after the commercial break, it's the animation just suddenly got a lot better, and it's like, what the hell happened? Is this what the rest of the show is going to be like? It's just it just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. But
yeah,
enough about that. It was one episode. There's a couple more episodes where it dips a little bit like that, but nothing as bad as when Shiroji was introduced. Um, but anyway, Shiroji is like, nah, man, I'll totally help you guys out. I don't care. I'll leave my hot wife behind, my hot girlfriend, whoever it is.
yeah,
She's fine without me. So they all continue on their travels. They reach the city where these gas mask wielding wearing weirdos hang from the ceiling, and it's like in a cave or underground tunnel or something like that. There's like a
yeah,
village down there, and they're called the Guardians, and they look over these other people that I guess harvest food to feed them, and they have to kind of pass through there. At first, I thought this was just like a weird one episode thing, but they do return several episodes. So I'll
yeah.
just
They're
leave that
very
note there.
important
Yeah, I'll just leave it there that they are people that
to
exist.
the society.
Yeah, yeah. So they leave there. They run into Kyozo again. Him and his other bodyguard are also waiting to ambush them, and Kyozo is going to be killed by the other bodyguard because Kyozo doesn't want Kanbei to die by anyone except for him and gets in his way. And Kyozo strikes him down, and then he joins the rest of them, and we have it. We have our 7 samurai, and they split into groups of 3 to go back to the village the farmers came from, and they have some interesting encounters along the way. They're pretty amusing. When they get back to the village, they find that no one is there to greet them, and it's because all the farmers are so scared of the samurai. And I get, in the context of the show, why it is, because of something that we'll talk about in just a bit. But this also kind of confused me because they specifically went out to get samurai to help them So what was their end game here if they were all just gonna hide?
Well, uh, it seemed like they went out to get the samurai, but not all the villagers were on board with that plan.
Yeah,
It
because
was one of
they're
those things where Kirara was like, "I'll go to the city and get samurai." They're like, "Water priestess, you can't do that." And I guess a good chunk of the villagers were okay. Go to the city to get samurai, but she's not really gonna get samurai. And then when she did, they're like, "Oh my god, she got samurai! What do we do? They're gonna like rob everybody and like kill everybody."
yeah. Well, either way, Kikucho, being the subtle man that he is, um, stirs up a commotion, so everybody comes outside and kind of calls them all out on being a bunch of jerks about the whole thing. The samurai start helping the villagers prepare to defend their village. Kyozo teaches them all how to use bow and arrows. Heihachi helps construct this really badass giant like ballista to launch into the enemy ships when they come. Um, there's a lot of this is the part of the show that I really started to get into. Like I liked it before, but it did move a little slowly when they were trying to recruit everybody. But this whole planning stage, this is when I really got on board with Samurai 7. It felt like it was really easy for me to get drawn into like the drama of the moment of preparing for this immense attack against the bandits that are coming back against them.
Yeah,
Um, at one point, though, they discover that one of the villagers is going to turn the samurai over to the bandits, and his name is Monzo, and he is perhaps the most tragic example of a joke played by God, because he is like the single ugliest anime character I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't
yeah, I
know. I
guess
don't know what the hell. I don't
his
know.
daughter
I don't. I don't
somebody
know
love
how
him.
his daughter didn't inherit any of his traits, let alone who willfully had sex with Monzo. It's such a
Uh,
strange character. Like he's got this really weird baby tuft of hair coming out of a giant forehead. He's got really noticeable buck teeth. He has like an infant-sized tumor growing out of the back of his head. It's just I have to find a picture and put it up here. It's so strange. And like the thing is, this must be some kind of caricature or something, because he kind of reminds me of the do you remember in Zelda Wind Waker the potion shop guy that had the buck teeth and the really huge head? He's also
oh
he's
yeah,
also the dye shop guy in Breath of the Wild. He kind of reminds me of Monzo. He's not quite as ugly, but he still has like a lot of those same features. I don't know if this is just like a caricature or something that I'm unaware
yeah,
of, but whew, man. Not to say like a lot of those villagers are kind of ugly. Like it's kind of weird how silly and cartoonish some of them look compared to the rest of the cast. But Monzo in particular, like everything about him just has betrayer written all over him, and yeah, he tries to turn the samurai over to the bandits. He gets caught, and Heihachi is furious about it. He's got like a huge problem with betrayal and wants to kill him. And there's like this debate over what to do with Monzo. And then Kikucho gives this really, really great speech about how the farmers behave, about how they secretly keep like crops and stuff to themselves away from the bandits and away from other people, and how they've killed samurai before and taken their goods, but it's not their fault because it's the samurai that have originally stolen crops from them during battles and, you know, had their way with their
yeah.
women and stuff like that. And it's like this vicious cycle, and Kikucho kind of breaks down over it. And then Kanbei reveals that Kikucho used to be a farmer, and that was what he needed to prove before he let him be like the final samurai. Because he
Right.
needed a soldier that had a farmer's heart and understood who they were fighting for. So that was a big moment in the show. In fact, I looked at Seven Samurai, and I also looked at Magnificent Seven, which is the American cowboy adaptation of Seven Samurai that was came out like in 1960, I think. And
Yeah.
that same scene is pretty much like verbatim in all three versions of this that I've seen. It's a really good scene. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire show.
Yeah. Um, it's one of the few moments where like it's funny because you hear Chris Sabbath in like so many things, but he plays
Yep.
Kikucho, and it's like one of the times where it's like, oh wow, yeah, I forgot how good he is, even though he is in like every show ever. But he is really good when he has the material to be really good.
Yeah, I also really like they gave like an echoey filter over his voice because he's supposed to be like inside the helmet because he's like a robot. Um, I like that a
Yeah,
lot. It really made me look forward to going to Full Metal Alchemist because I also really like that about Alphonse, because they're both like wearing suits of armor. Um, but they continue preparing for the attack, and eventually the attack happens, and it's a pretty cool battle. I don't really have much to say about it, but it's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, here Gorobei is cut down, and that kind of bummed me out
yeah,
because Gorobei was one of my favorite characters. We'll talk more about like each of the samurai individually after we wrap up the story, which I guess we should start getting to. Um,
yeah.
but
It,
so anyway, they win the battle against the bandits, and I'm not exactly sure what happens now, but some of them just kind of go off on their own. Like
yeah,
Hyozo leaves on his own, and Kanbei goes off on his own. Kanbei is the most important one because he's going to go to the capital to say he is the one that killed the envoy to the magistrate's house, because he has a plan to get the women that the bandits stole back, because they discovered that the bandits were actually being sent to the villages by the capital. Um,
yeah, and they're stealing women and children and bringing them to the capital for some reason.
yes, for a very particular weird reason, and this is where I
Yeah,
definitely feels more like usual anime nonsense, but it never really
it's
disrupted my
very
enjoyment.
sci-fi.
It didn't really disrupt my enjoyment of the show like Escaflowne's weird plot twist did.
No,
Anyway, Kanbei gets to the capital, and it turns out that the Emperor is this man being barely held alive in a glass jar of fluids. He was like gravely injured in the war, and this is all that remains of him, apparently. And he
he's
has
Zordon from Power Rangers.
and he
I mean,
has
he kind of is.
he kind of is, except he's bad. Or I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know Power Rangers. Is Zordon bad? Is there ever a thing where it's
no,
like,
he's good
oh
guy.
no, what if the Power Rangers are being used for evil and Rita Repulsa was
No,
good all anyway.
no.
Anyway. So they find out that you find out, I should say, that the Emperor is impregnating women to make clones of himself as a successor, and one of these clones happened to be Ukyo, the magistrate's son, and he takes this pretty interesting test where he's asked a bunch of questions about what he would do in specific situations if he were the emperor. I really like this part a lot. Ukyo really felt like kind of like a throwaway character for a while because he was just kind of like a bumbling spoiled
The
brat, but
spoiled son.
you find out pretty quickly he is actually really smart and has this whole big plan to kind of challenge the class society in general. So he becomes the new emperor and is kind of like briefly co-emperor with the emperor, and then he kills the emperor and just takes over the title and starts ruling in his place instead. Um, and
Maybe you can answer me a question
sure.
about this because so like the emperor, they refer to the emperor as like Amanushi,
Uh huh.
and I guess that's the emperor's name or title.
I was wondering this too
And
because I was looking up on Wikipedia what an Amanushi might be, and I didn't get any results. I think it might
yeah,
be his name, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, so I guess someone else could also answer that for us if they have any knowledge about it.
and with the stuff with like Ukyo, where he turns out to be the emperor's clone, and the emperor has like a ton of clones. Ukyo is the 49th clone,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
like wow. And the emperor decided to release his clones into like the farming villages so they know, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
life of their subjects.
Yeah, which I thought
Ukyo
was
is like a
really
unique
interesting.
situation because he was a peasant, which doesn't come up really at the beginning of the show.
No,
It's
it's completely withheld from you until this point in time, which I thought was
yeah,
interesting because we know Ukyo's adopted, but we don't. Well, no, actually, they do mention he was adopted from a farming village. We just don't have any
mm,
context about why he was. But
yeah.
I guess the magistrate had some idea of this plan. Um,
Well, the thing is, the magistrate didn't though, because when the magistrate is there and Ukyo is revealed to be one of the emperor's clones, the magistrate says, "Hey, I just raised this boy. I had no idea he was you, Amanushi." And
oh,
it's weird because the emperor kind of refers to his clones as just being him, and it's kind of bizarre because the emperor kind of seems like a dipshit. Because he has all these like circuitous schemes, but at the same time he just sort of like assumes like, well, they're the clones of me, therefore they are me. So
yeah.
when Ukyo eventually betrays the emperor and kills him, it's totally shocking for the emperor because he's like, how could I do this to me? Like,
It's not even that too, but when Ukyo is taking the test when in the private room and the emperor is asking him the questions, Ukyo just like gets up and starts messing around with his tube and like looking inside of it and stuff, and the emperor's just like, I don't care, just do whatever.
yeah, yeah, it's just like open up panels on the Emperor's Zordon tube and turning
Yeah,
knobs and shit. And it's like, I need that to live. Please don't turn that.
I mean, I don't care too much, to be honest. The
Yeah,
whole thing with Ukyo turning out to be this brilliant man trying to start a coup was too much to enjoy. But
it works very well.
yeah. But anyway, Kanbei is caught while trying to take the previous emperor's life for the women, but one of the women is that man all the way from the beginning of this podcast, Rikichi. His wife was taken, and Rikichi's wife is impregnated with the emperor's son and pleads with Kanbei not to kill the emperor, and Kanbei hesitates and is taken captive, and he's going to be executed. And just before he's going to be executed, he pulls some samurai voodoo and gets out of the way and is going to look like he's going to escape. And then Ukyo just kind of shows up and he's like, I'm the emperor now, bitch, and I say you and me are okay. And lets him go in front of everybody as a ruse to show how nice a guy Ukyo is and how different he is from the former emperor. And
Mm.
Kanbei kinda is like, I don't trust you, but okay. Um,
The thing with Ukyo is, I mean, maybe we could just, because he is like the big bad of the series, and
mhm.
the end of the show really involves him. Is he says all like the stuff that you might think he's actually maybe not that bad, but at the end of the day, all his schemes are really only to serve him and him alone by manipulating
Yeah.
the situation by kind of almost giving the accountability of his actions to other groups
Hmm.
with them not knowing that he's the one that is actually controlling everything and almost making a situation where the people he directly hurts are going to defend him and do his like dirty work for him, but at the end of the day everything he's doing is just so he can have everything.
Yeah, he's a very manipulative character, and I like characters like
Yeah,
this because they're always so interesting to watch play out. Not necessarily interesting to talk about, but they're always interesting to watch for me. Um, so you get to kind of see his constant betrayals. For example, he promises the villages that they're going to follow the main character's village's example and start sending these homeless samurai to their villages to protect them. And then they also send the bandits out to continue stealing their crops, just to be shut down and caught down. And he has just this cycle keep on going just so he can stay on top and reap the rewards of everything, because the people now think he's this great person and are just going to willfully give them rice as tribute instead of having the bandits steal them, but he's going to keep having the bandits attack them so he can keep looking like a good guy. It's a whole big interesting cycle that eventually there are seven samurai are going to go and take him down over, and that's kind of what the rest of the show is about. There's a little bit of drama between Kanbei and the Greenhorn Kachiro and the priestess Kiara that I think is hilarious, but it is pretty stupid. Um, and eventually they all go and make an assault on the capital, and a bunch more die, and Ukyo is eventually killed, and the village is eventually at peace, and that's it. I don't want to like
yeah.
just quite. I don't want to like mull over the end of the show like that, but it is kind of like the main thing they're doing is storming an attack on the capital and Ukyo, and aside from specific characters dying, I don't really have too much more to say about it.
Yeah, Kanbei, yeah, Ukyo, before all that happens, Ukyo tries to execute Kanbei for, the crime he committed, but Kanbei is able to escape.
Yeah,
But
we talked about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Ukyo
I
gave
you
him
know
the
what? I
pardon.
think I think I missed that. I was having some connection issues, so my
Oh,
apology
it's
for
okay.
that.
Yeah, we were talking about how Kanbei
Yeah,
went to try um to rescue the girls, and then he got captured, and then
yeah.
Ukyo let him go
Okay,
afterwards.
then
Um,
never mind.
um, yeah. So overall, like I thought it was a really good story. I really enjoyed it. I really didn't have too many plot holes to pick apart or that bothered me or were distracting. The most distracting thing to me was like that one episode with the art style, but other than that, like I don't know. I didn't like the intro and ending songs. So that was about it, really.
I like the intro song.
Um okay. I don't
I
really have
I
much to
don't
say.
know.
I don't really have much to say about it. It's just
Yeah.
it was kind of like an annoying song to me.
Mm,
She does one of Inuyasha's intro songs, and I go back and forth between liking it and not liking it.
mm.
I don't really know any other songs by the person that does the ending. Although I do like the very end when they do that. I don't know what instrument it is, but that very samurai music sounding instrument as the sword
Japanese
reflects.
guitar.
Yeah, as the sword
Yeah.
reflects the shadows of the seven samurai. I do like that part, but
Yeah.
I don't know. One other weird thing for me, and you watched it online, right? On Funimation now.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
They had two episode recaps per episode for me on my discs, and I didn't really understand why. Like at the beginning, they'll do
Mm.
a normal recap for what happened in the previous episode, and then after the end credits roll, Kirara's little sister, Komachi was her name. Um,
Yeah.
she does an episode recap in the form of a letter to one of her friends about what had just happened in the episode we just watched.
Yeah, that was in my version too. I'm not gonna lie, I started fast forwarding through the recaps as I
they
continued to watch the show just to save a little time.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Um,
They do take. I took this time to just kind of go to the bathroom or go check the mail or something like that.
yeah. Overall, my opinions of Samurai 7 are kind of it's a good show. However, it's a show that is, it is Samurai 7. It's a story you've been exposed to in the cultural zeitgeist a lot, especially if you watch, fantasy shows on TV. Like, I'm sure the Legendary Adventures of Hercules, Kevin Sorbo had a Samurai 7 episode, Xena had a Samurai 7 episode. I mean, hell, even new stuff like Star Wars The Mandalorian had a Seven Samurai episode. It's something like it's a trope that is done like a million times. So it's like this is affiliated with the original version and it's good, but at the same time, for me, I don't really have much to say about it because besides for all the weird sci-fi stuff they added to this with the mechs and the guardians and stuff, a lot of it is like I've seen this story 1,000 times.
Yeah, I mean, I will argue it's still a damn good trope though. Like they
Oh
do it
yeah, I
really
love when they do
solidly.
it.
Um, that being said, it is a show I ended up liking a lot more than my first time watching it, like 10 years ago or so. But it's not a show I feel like I would be in the mood to revisit as much as maybe other shows. It's like one of those movies that you really really like, but it's probably going to be like a few years before you feel like you're in the mood to check it out again. It's like you've got to be like in a very
Yeah,
specific mood to see it. It's like one of those things where it's like I'm really happy with what I experience right now, and I want to put it on the shelf and wait a while before I look at it again. And I don't mean that as like a backhanded compliment. It's just there are just some stories like that there's going to be some anime coming up that I really look forward to going back and having a really fun time with because it's just a fun show that has like shallow things in it that just make it fun to watch. And then there are shows that I'll be super nostalgic for, that I'll feel nostalgia for at certain times of the year to go back and watch it. And this is just one of those shows that are just like really good. I can't see myself like I feel like I have to be reminded of this show when I forget about it again before I really want to check it out again. Again,
yeah,
not meaning to make it sound like a backhanded compliment. It's just, I don't know. I was
it's
very
fine.
happy and satisfied with this viewing, and it's more than enough to last me a long time. Before
Yeah,
before we wrap up, let's talk about some of the characters because that was the big thing about the show. It's the seven samurai, and there's seven different personalities and character designs that really stood out to the most to me. Did you have a favorite
yeah.
samurai?
I guess like I like Kanbei and I like Kikujo. I mean, Kanbei, me and my one friend that I remember talking about the show with way back when always would call Kanbei Samurai Jesus. I think you've called him that too.
I've heard him called this many times. He does
Yeah,
bear a pretty strong resemblance to what some depictions of Jesus look like.
yeah. He's interesting. His whole thing of
And Monzo would
yeah.
Monzo would be Pontius Pilate.
Man, every time I hear that guy's name is So, and I can't help but think of Samurai Champloo with Monzo the Saw.
I did
But
too. I won't lie. Like I tried really hard not to think about Samurai Champloo while watching this because that's a show that I really, really want to revisit again, and probably appeals to my tastes more than Samurai 7 does.
yeah,
But Monzo the Saw, we've made Monzo the Saw references a lot over the years. I don't know
he's the
why we.
best. He's
I
only
don't.
in like 2 episodes,
Yeah, I don't
but
know
he
why
does
we
like
think
such an
he's.
impression.
I don't know why we think he's so funny, or
Yeah,
memorable, but it just it pops up a lot. I don't even know how. It just works its way into conversations.
yeah.
But anyway, go on with your favorites.
Uh, yeah. I like Kanbe's deal where he is. He says he's never been in a winning war. He has some interesting, I guess, tidbits of wisdom and lines at certain points of the show. I'm very terrible at remembering some of them, but
He's a
his
good
whole
leader.
situation with Kirara is kind of hilarious because it's sort of like he's so beyond like some stuff that like when you find out that Kirara is crushing on him pretty bad, he's just immediately like, yeah, no, this stop. It would never work.
Yeah.
Like, and you
This.
kind of have to like admire that because some shows would have the temptation of being like, maybe these characters should like see where it goes, but it's just like, no, absolutely not. Like,
Yeah. So the Greenhorn Kachiro has always been a heavy simp for Kirara the entire time, and it's almost cringeworthy to watch, but it's kind of funny too because he's just so serious about being Mr. Serious, and it's funny because he's got like a baby face and a really dorky voice. And
yeah.
at some point in time, it looked like Kiara was interested in Kachiro too, but I guess she kind of fell for Kanbei at some point. I don't know why or how, but
Because the
that's a
dowsing crystal pointed to him, and
I
she's the order
guess.
priestess.
I mean, Kanbei is taken by Kyozo, so it's too bad for Kiara. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was weird. That was funny. I laughed at that. I don't think I should have, but like Kirara and Kachiro look significantly younger than most of the other samurai. Kanbei, I don't know how old Kanbei's supposed to be, but I would guess he's like in his 40s somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, knowing Japan, characters usually are younger. So I would imagine if like his canon age would be like, oh, he's like in his later 30s, but he looks like he could be like 40 something.
Yeah.
And that would maybe make more sense.
Yeah. That was weird. Kikacho and Gorobei were my favorites. Kikacho just brings so much energy to like any scene he's in, and it's just
Yeah.
like you said, the voice actor does a really great job. He brings a lot of personality. He was definitely my favorite character when I watched Seven Samurai. Um, he was really funny in that movie. He brought a lot of humor to that movie. Um, uh, he always reminded me of a Viking, and it wasn't until I was really looking at him more closely this time that I was like, man, that red hair is fooling me. He's a robot, but he's in the shape of samurai armor. I don't know why. I
Yeah.
don't know why I always thought he had like a Viking helmet on or something. Because that red hair just kind of throws me.
He
Um,
kind of reminds me of I'm gonna say this character's name wrong because I'm just terrible sometimes. But in Street Fighter EX and Street Fighter and EX layer, there's a character named Gerudo that Kikacho looks a lot like.
I'll,
And I think his look is based off of something in Japanese mythology too.
okay.
So
Um,
yeah,
I also just as a side note, I loved his relationship with Kirara's little sister Kamachi. Like the two of
yeah,
them have this heartbreakingly sweet, like older sibling, younger sibling relationship. I don't even know if I would call
Yeah.
them siblings, but I was all tearing up when like he was humoring her by saying he was gonna be her husband when she grew up.
It's like a Wolverine Jubilee type of thing at first, like
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like good with like younger kids and stuff.
yeah. He does die at the end, and I kind of missed how he died the first time it went around. He was trying to prevent the capital from crashing into the village because the capital is actually like a flying ship. And
Yeah,
he picks up this giant freaking sword by one of the bandits and stops them, but I guess he melts in the process of all the heat and explosions going on. And
yeah,
like his death didn't bother me so much. I was kind of pissed because like all my favorite characters always die, but like when it goes to showing like all that remains are just his feet in the sand, and then Kamachi finds it. That's what really kind of upset me. Like her sadness over it.
yeah.
Or I don't know, does she find it or I can't remember now. She
I
does
think
find
they
it.
do.
Yeah.
They all find it
Yeah.
because they know Kikicho stopped the capital from crashing into Kana Village, and
Yeah. I was honestly
I
more
mean,
upset when Gorobei died because Gorobei brought a lot of positivity to the group, and that's something I've been appreciating more in characters as I've been getting older. Like I'd rather be the kind of guy that brings like more of that positivity than have another be another Kashiro will be like, I will never let your hand go again, Kirara. I will protect you with my life.
can we talk about Kishiro because he seems
Yes.
like he's going to become like a total edge lord, and this is like one of the few instances where his story just like actually is not nearly as annoying as you think it could be
Yeah.
because he has this kind of freak out the first time he kills somebody, and he sort of gets this sort of bloodlust when he's fighting, but toward further on in the show he sort of kind of comes to terms with it, and he ends up trying to uh tell Kirara, hey, like I like you and stuff, and like even like gives her a kiss and stuff, but she's like totally
Oh
not into
yeah, and
it,
that
and
was
you think,
that was weird. Like
yeah,
there's a scene where Kanbei and Kochiro and Kirara are all hanging out in a house somewhere, and Kochiro just starts like flipping out on Kanbei all of a sudden because Kochiro goes to the capital to rescue Kanbei, and Kanbei's mad about it because I don't know because Kanbei had it under control the whole time, and now he has to worry about Kochiro. And I think Kochiro kind of knew maybe Kiara felt something for Kanbei, and that's why he was mad at Kanbei. So he storms off
yeah,
after Kirara tells him off, and then Kirara goes chasing after him. And then like they're in an alley, and Kochiro pushes Kirara up against the wall, and he's like, "I'm leaving the group. Why don't you come with me?" And then she's like not saying
yeah.
anything because I don't know. And then Kochiro just like goes in and like kisses her, and then it's like super awkward, and then he just like leaves her there.
Yeah, so you think after that he's gonna just become like an insufferable edge lord, but he ends up going back to like Kana Village and then going to Kurobe's grave. What's his name? The
Gorobei,
street performer guy.
Gorobei.
Yeah, Gorbe. Yeah, he goes to Gorbe's grave and he's kind of like, maybe I came here because you knew I needed to like, still help out with the village, and he is a little edge lordy, but like he's actually being productive at least,
I would say
and
he's angsty instead of edgelordy.
yeah, he's angsty. Yeah, yeah, and he
I
does kind of prove himself with like when uh the capital begins to attack the village for the final time, he's able to deflect one of the beams of
yeah,
the capital because
that was
airships have
badass.
one weakness, and that's samurai, apparently, because swords can reflect laser beams.
Yep.
Just go with it.
It's one of the things where it's like as long as it's stupid fun that I can get behind, I'm
Yeah.
cool with it. But like,
Yeah.
and this was it. Like in this show, and this show is pretty grounded overall. It's not until like the robots show up as bandits and like these giant, when people start cutting ships in half with swords, that it starts to get like to anime levels of absurdity. But it's still fun for me
Yeah,
though.
that happens at the very first episode.
It is a weird thing to start out with because it's not like it's a great reflection of the rest of the series. Normally they're fighting
Yeah.
other people. It's not unless there's like a few specific scenes where they're cutting up large machines, but it is pretty badass when they do that. But the whole thing with Kichiro, I think, needed to happen because Kichiro, like I said, he's a huge simp for Kirara, and he's like so blindly devoted to Kanbei, and then he wants them to teach him how to be a samurai and a man of honor, and he's not really listening when Kanbei's like, "Do you know the weight you have to carry of taking another man's life?" He's like, teach me how to do stuff, senpai, so I can be with Kirara and never let her hand go again." And then it takes, heartbreak and your teacher being mad at you to realize, you know what? Go out on your own. Experience life on your own. Grow as a person instead of relying on these two people so much. And that's kind of what he does. He becomes kind of a badass protecting this village.
Yeah.
He's not my favorite character. Like I said, he's a dork. He's like, listening to him makes me cringe sometimes, but I do like where his little arc went. They don't all have arcs.
Yeah.
It's really just him, but it was a good one. Another character I really liked the design of was Kyuzo. I really liked the red. I really liked the jacket. I really liked the twin swords. I thought the hair looked cool. I thought the eyes looked cool. I really wish he spoke more though, because every time he speaks, it's just like one or two words in a not very convincing voice. And I get that's what they were going for,
Yeah,
but
he's got like a pretty deep voice.
but the character design, I did really dig it. He's a character I really want to fight in a Devil May Cry game.
You definitely fit in.
But
He's got that Vosh the Stampede jacket going on. Hihachi is another character I really like too.
I liked them, but I could have liked them
since-
more. He didn't have as much of a presence as the other characters did. But he was I did like him. They threw in something that wasn't in the original movie with him where he hates because he was the one that got so mad when Monzo was going to betray them. And you find out late that he is really against betrayers because he betrayed his own squad when he was in the war.
Yeah, it sounded like unintentionally he did it though, but it is one of the things about him.
I thought it was
his whole thing.
I thought it was intentional. It's just he was too scared not to do it.
Maybe I don't know.
It wasn't
I'm very bad at remembering stuff that happened in this show for some reason.
It wasn't like a huge thing with him. Most of the time, he's a really easygoing dude that also brings a lot of positivity to the table. But yeah, the only one that really didn't leave much with me is Shiroji. He was the last guy that they introduced in the show. He fought with a spear. That was different. But like I don't know, he didn't really have a lot to bring. I feel like they introduced a lot of characters pretty early, and he was a little later. And I don't know, he's
technically in the first episode.
Yeah,
he's the guy driving the ship that Kanbei's standing on top of.
Yeah, but unless you have like a really keen eye, you might miss that on your first time through. I only knew it because my box has the cover with all of them on it. So it's like, oh yeah, him. Propeller hair.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, I liked Kamachi, Kirara's little sister, a lot. Kirara was pretty boring to me.
She's just the water priestess.
She's just like all duty and nothing else. She's kind of perfect for Kachiro, to be honest. But
Yeah,
she's not having it. She's into them older guys, and she knows all about Kachiro's simping ways.
yeah. The whole Rikichi and Sane thing is it's kind of like sort of like heartbreaking that like his wife like gave herself up to the bandits, and then like I guess it's sort of like she's like, no, I love the emperor, but part of you is like, well, did the emperor like brainwash her or something with like science?
I don't know. That was
And
something I felt terrible for Rikichi, and but I hated what's her name,
yeah,
Senna. Was it is her name Senna? Senai?
hated what?
What's her name? Senna or Senai?
Senai, yeah.
Senai. Um,
Senai,
because
yeah,
Kirara actually makes a much more convincing argument for why she did what she did than Senai does. Because Kirara says she did
yeah,
it so she could protect the other girls from having a similar fate. If she was the one that played nice with the Emperor and she was the one that carried his child, he would be easier on the other ones. And that makes sense to me, but every single time Senai speaks, all I hear is, I don't care about Rikichi. I'm in love with the Emperor. Why did you kill the Emperor? I have the Emperor's son. I love the Emperor. He's the best. He's really not that bad. And I don't know, maybe it's like Stockholm Syndrome or something, but like when Kanbei says I saw it in her
yeah,
eyes, she really does love him. It just really feels like to me she just kind of betrayed Rikichi. Like I said, if Kiara didn't speak up the way she did, I probably would have just not even given Sanai any credit at all. But she was one that didn't get that much sympathy from me with how she behaved, and that's really cruel of me. I know, but just I think they could have painted her in a little bit of a different light to make her more sympathetic because she really did just kind of feel like screw Rikichi. I'm in love with the Emperor now. And to me, that's kind of like
yeah. It's a
to
weird
to
plot
me
to kind of bring up
to
towards the
me
end of the show,
to me
and
that's the Heihachi betrayal thing getting me mad.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's also two other characters that are connected to that too, where I forgot the girl's name, but there's a girl they meet that is working in the Guardians village that she has a sister that was taken
oh
to the
yeah,
capital as well.
yep,
And she's the one that first like kind of like said the thing where like, you know, Sinai's been like brainwashed by the emperor. That kind of made me think like you know, even though Kanbei says that thing, it's just like, did he do something to her? But it never really gets elaborated about.
yeah. I mean, the only thing I could say
And
is
it,
by the end of the show, at least it feels like Senai is willing to give Rikichi another chance. But I just
yeah,
feel like I don't know, Rikichi could just do so much better. He was so devoted to her. In Seven Samurai, because this whole stuff with Ukyo and the magistrate and everything that doesn't exist in Seven Samurai. It's just the battle with the village. Um, Senai actually, I guess it's implied she's been raped by the bandits and can't face Rikichi again, so she decides to kill herself.
oh geez.
Um, yeah, Rikichi
Yeah,
is
there's a lot
actually
of darkness in that original one, isn't there?
not a lot, but it does pop up. Like Kachiro
Yeah.
and I don't think it's Kirara because Kirara's not in the movie, but it's Monzo's daughter. Kachiro falls in love
Hmm.
with Monzo's daughter, and Monzo catches them, and then Monzo starts like beating his daughter and saying like, you know, oh, my only daughter is damaged goods now and stuff like that, and it's like super uncomfortable. Um,
Oof.
but you know, there's not like I don't know, it's still pretty PG most of the time.
Yeah.
They only touch on some dark stuff like here and there, but I guess that's
Hmm.
just you need to know like the severity of the
Yeah.
situation. I guess.
Definitely to give, you know, there's stakes to this, you know.
Yeah.
Like this is like, you know, terrible, real historical esque thing that happened, back then for sure. So
Yeah. Not that Samurai 7 is necessarily reflecting, you know, historical 15th century Japan where giant airships
no,
fly through the
no,
sky. But
it's a
yeah.
story, but it's like a believable like thing
Yeah.
that like it's very like grounded in reality
Yeah.
for the original movie.
Mhm.
So
Um
and that's probably why it's endured for 70, 80 years now.
it's a really solid story. A story really easy to understand but still is just a very strong tale. Um
Yeah.
I one of the things I was trying to figure out while going through all of these animes is if I could recommend anime to somebody that's not into anime. I don't know if I would pull yes on Samurai 7, but I'd be a lot more willing to show a non-anime fan or recommend to a non-anime fan Samurai 7 than the stuff we've looked at so far.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, just because it does have like the Akira Kurosawa stuff based on it, and
yeah, it
it's
is
pretty.
it's very light on a lot of the what I call anime bullshit that shows up, like um like teenagers fighting life or death battles on rollerblades or being sucked into a fantasy world that's being led by Isaac Newton. It feels like non-anime fans might find something more digestible in Samurai 7 than in some other shows.
Yeah.
Seven Samurai, I would actually definitely recommend checking out if you can get behind sitting through a 3.5 hour movie, which is something I would normally say hell no to, but for whatever reason, I was very content to sit through this. And B does not mind subtitles. I watch
Yeah.
all these anime shows I'm watching are in English because I don't like reading subtitles specifically for animation. Because one of the things I like about animation is the actual animation, and reading subtitles just kind of um, distracts me from that. I don't want to like diss on actual acting in real actor performances, but it's something I can get behind with subtitles a lot more. I'm a lot more willing to check out something in Japanese if it's like a real movie than anime, because I'd rather just pay attention to the animation.
Yeah.
So like for example, my dad, Magnificent Seven is he really loves it, and he was kind of on the fence about wanting to check out Seven Samurai because he knows about it and he knows how its influence on Magnificent Seven, but he can't do subtitles. And normally I call my dad out on what he's unwilling to do for checking out movies because he considers himself a film buff, but he also likes to stay in his own comfort zone. But I can't really blame someone for not wanting to sit through a 3.5 hour subtitled movie. But that being said, definitely recommend it. Even the 1960 Magnificent Seven movie, for what it is, I had a good time with that too. I'm not really like a huge Western fan, but it was really fun seeing all the similarities between the characters and the scenes that happened between all three of these pieces of media that we've talked about today. I would give it
Yeah.
like I'm kind of toying with the idea of making like a tier list based on my enjoyment of a series to kind of get a vibe of what I like and dislike about anime. We've been giving grades so far, and I would kind of give Samurai 7 like somewhere lingering between a B plus and an A minus because I thought it was really solid, but I'll see how much I remember and enjoy remembering it compared to other stuff we look at in the future. It's like I enjoyed Air Gear
Yeah.
based on pure fun more than Samurai 7, but Samurai 7 was definitely a much better told story.
Yeah. It's solid. I'd probably give it definitely like a B plus for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it is something that, like you said, I don't know if I would, need to go back to this anytime soon. Um, it's a good show. It It didn't really leave all that much of an impression on me, though. It's one of those things where, I just watched it, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, but even when it was airing, it was one of those things that I don't ever really remember being like, oh man, did you see like the latest episode of, Samurai 7?
Yeah. It doesn't have
And
that
maybe it's
same
just
kind
because
of
it's
immediate.
based on a previous work,
It doesn't have that same kind of immediate impact as like a Shonen Jump show might have. It's
Yeah.
just a really solid experience that is worth checking out. Um, but like, I don't know. Like I said, don't mean to backhand compliment the show. I feel guilty about it because I feel like I'm kind of bringing it down, but that's just honestly where I feel about it. It was really good. I don't really feel like it's the kind of thing that I'm going to feel the need to revisit often, you know. But I will definitely
Yeah.
look forward to the next time I see this because, like I said, I enjoyed it a lot more this time around than 10 years ago when I was falling out of love with anime. But any final thoughts or anything?
Not really. I like it. It was
Yeah.
good.
You watched it on Funimation now, correct?
Yes.
All right. So
Yeah, it
if
was there. It was in good quality as usual.
yes, so
It's one of those. I mean, Funimation now. A good majority of shows you can watch there if you're into dubs, which we both watch dubs. And I know sometimes people say like, well, if you watch dubs, you're not a real anime fan. It's like
well, hey,
just
guess
stop.
what?
Enjoy the
Guess what?
media
I'm not a
however
real.
you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm not a real anime fan. I thought it was very clear that I don't even know if I like anime right now. That's what the point of this is trying to
Yeah.
figure out for me.
I was just making a comment about like people that
Oh,
kind
I
of
know, I know,
tend to gatekeep.
I know. I don't.
Yeah,
I was
so
speaking more to those people, not to you. If
yeah,
you indeed have, if the viewer indeed has that kind of impression on us, just
yeah.
enjoy the show
There's
how
no
you
sense of
can.
gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Funimation now. I know there's a bunch of places you could watch Seven Samurai. I ended up I didn't have any subscription services, so I rented it on demand for me, which I know you could also do like
Yeah.
on YouTube and Vudu and places like that. And Magnificent
It's available
Seven,
on
I
HBO.
it's on HBO Max. I considered signing up for HBO Max to check it out, or at least try out the free trial, because I've been wanting to check out some stuff on HBO Max, but I'm still kind of like, meh, I don't want to have 1,000 streaming services.
Yeah,
But
I got it.
anyway, so next time, if all goes well, I think we decided we're gonna take a look at the original Full Metal Alchemist series. Um,
Yes, the not Brotherhood one.
yeah. Brotherhood is something I'd love to check out. I only seen part of it, but that was during when I was falling out of love with anime. So,
First season is rough of Brotherhood because it's the original Full Metal Alchemist except in hyperspeed.
like Hellsing Ultimate's first 2 episodes.
But worse.
Um, well,
It really turned me off the show when I originally watched it, but I
perhaps.
eventually came back and was like, okay, this is good now.
Well, either way, we are going to be looking at the original Full Metal Alchemist series next, if all goes according to plan. It's 51
Yeah.
episodes, and there is a movie as well.
Yes, the
So,
movie is like the conclusion to the show. So
which is the only reason I'm really looking at it. Well, I don't know. I looked at the Escaflowne movie. I might look at other movies too, but it's going to take us a little bit to get through because it is twice as long as shows we've looked at so far. So, I mean, all that I've uploaded so far, by the time we're recording this, is Air Gear. So, I would say, I don't know, about a month. I'm gonna guesstimate. I'm gonna try to shoot for. We're gonna try to shoot for it before we sit down and talk
just
about Full
release an
Metal
episode
Alchemist.
every 2 weeks, and then by the time we get the Full Metal Alchemist, you'll be good.
Yeah, that's kind of my game plan. So, viewer, this probably won't affect you in any way. I'm just talking out loud. But anyway, if you've sat with us for this long, thank you so much for listening to us talk about Samurai 7. If you have any kind of thoughts or opinions about this show, please let us know. And with that, I hope you all have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.